And we live, we back. It's C Talk. I got Jillian the Word with she back.
I'm
And
back.
boy, do we have an interesting episode today. Before we even got on, we was going back and forth. And the Pisces in me was coming out, the Gemini and her was coming out. I felt like it was Common versus Lauryn Hill on here, boy.
Oh my goodness. Not versus and
that's fine. Versus is fine. It's you and I against the world. Versus.
You know what? See?
But listen,
yeah, I don't want to fight.
Before we even get started, because I like to get my house cleaning out of the way. Let me just go ahead and get my house cleaning out of the way. It's C Talk. Make sure that you're sharing, you're liking, you're subscribing, you're commenting. Make sure you're inboxing me if you got anything you want to cover on the show. If you want to be on the show, you want to talk about something, hit me up. I'm always interested in new topics and stuff like that. And make sure that you donate. Cash App, Logic Man, Venmo at Logic Man. We always looking for donations to help pay for our time. And what I wanted to say before we get started, man, I wanted to say this, man. I gotta give a shout out to the Gemini zodiac sign. Y'all, and I hate to say this because I'm a Pisces and we're super duper creative and we pride ourselves by that. But Geminis have got it sold up when it comes to music. Oh my goodness. Andre 3000, Lauryn Hill, Kanye West, Killer Mike, Ice Cube,
Kendrick Lamar,
man. Geminis be doing it.
The Word Witch.
Yes. Can you, just real quick before we get started on because our whole topic is what is the importance of sound and chant? And we're gonna get into talking to hip hop. Logic can't pass up that opportunity. And shout out to Jill, the Word Witch, for coming up with the topic. I'm like, oh man, I've been wanting to talk about this, but she gonna take you on a spiritual science, scientifical thing.
The octopus.
Yeah, she gonna get you. But what is it about Geminis you think?
Well, that zodiac represents the messenger. It represents the messenger. And as you were talking about before, we press play, the way nature mimics music. So it's the pattern of the information that's being brought down. And honestly, tempo, ma'at, magnetic fields. So music is a way that we can connect to other levels of consciousness. So I think it has to do with that specific portion of the gate that we came through and the ability to manipulate patterns of energy vocally in order to produce certain feelings and messages through the music. So, but definitely, everybody has the entire zodiac in them. And this is why, of course, you have people with other, prominent zodiac signs that also make dope music. So, and as far as me tapping into the music really, really late in my life, not knowing at all that it was something that I could even do, it's the same thing with all of us. I think that when we get to specific brain waves and patterns, we'll start to see that we actually can tap into certain things that we never thought we could before.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that we all have the zodiac signs with us and everything.
Absolutely.
They say that Pisces is the last house. It's a combination of all the signs together. I remember my Lightner told me that. I'm like, he's really into the zodiac and all that. He taught me a lot about it. But I just think it's kind of interesting how that plays a role into, sound and chant. Our guy, our brother, our spiritual brother now, Bob Marley, they said that he was working on a whole different level of vibrations. That's why his music was so powerful. But I make the argument all the time, and people see it other ways. I think he's the most influential artist in music history. I think he just his international, you go all over the world, you see Bob Marley. I guess you could say the same thing for Michael, but Michael's music just kind of hits different than Bob's. Bob's is just it's different because he produced the music too. He's playing with it. You know, it was like Bob. He was a piece, man, and I
Yeah.
think Bob's an Aquarius. You know what I'm saying? So who
Yeah.
else? Who knows what other signs he's got going through his whole zodiac? But Bob was a powerful piece when we talk about vibration. So let's just talk about um, because I've been trying to explain to people in African spiritual systems, indigenous, aboriginal spiritual systems, there was no difference between science and spirituality. So I want to tackle this whole conversation from the premise of it scientifically and spiritually before we start jumping into pop culture, terminology and lexicon and whatnot. Like, what is the science of sound and chant and how it relates to human beings, how it can be used as a detriment, how it can be used as an asset or, a benefit to us? Like, what's the science and spirituality about like sound and chant?
Well, as a base, right? Sound influences everything here. Most of us are coming from a base of Christianity. John 1:1 says, "In the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God." So this would be a vibration, this would be a frequency, and they're calling it a word, a sound. So, right, in other practices, they say that there's a sound that seeded the universe. And the sound that they use is Aum, AUM, because all three of these letters actually embody every sound. And so by when you do it properly, you will even begin to feel your body ring, right? So this is the message center. You're gonna feel it in your chest. The U is more an OU rounded mouth sound. So when you're gonna feel it come up into your throat. And when you hold the and you keep it up, you're going to feel your sinuses ringing and it's going to go up and ring to your third eye. So, the same way any of us have ever sat in a car with somebody who had too much bass and it rattled, and it actually was rattling your own heartbeat, right? And could rattle your senses and everything. We understand already that sound affects us. Period. If you're sad and you listen to a sad song, forget about it. It's going to amplify that emotion in you, right? And lead you to certain thoughts. So the science of sound, once you understand that sound is older than humans, and so there are key sounds.
Say that again. Say that. I love that quote. You said that before we got on. Say that one more time. That
Sound
makes
is older than humans.
damn. That is so true. And what do they do to measure the development and growth of a human being?
Oh
Ultrasound.
man. Oh man. Okay.
Ultrasound.
All right. So we're still talking about the science, right? What I did
Yeah.
for you earlier too was just a short clip on Dr. Emoto's water experiment. And they say that we are about 70 to 80% water, right? So what this clip did was he would put a word on a jar or make a certain sound to water in a jar. And when he put it under the microscope, it created certain beautiful crystals, right? So words like I love you, thank you, those created beautiful crystals. Whereas words like I hate you, you make me sick created what looked like a splash. There's no form to it. What we need to understand is there's a frequency for everything. There's a frequency for poverty. There's a frequency for wealth. People who want to be wealthy, they would focus and they would be listening to things constantly in the pattern of wealth. If you're listening to things that are constantly in the pattern or the shaping and molding your consciousness, your mind into what is less than, you are going to sit in that container of consciousness and consider that. And that's why that's why certain sound patterns are used as such heavy tools to affect us today. Um, we understand that there's also spectrums of frequency that we don't hear. You have things like dog whistles. It'll drive them crazy, but humans don't hear it. Just because we're not hearing it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It means it's outside of our spectrum. So people who are clairaudient, right? And they have tons of information to show that there are people who have actually tapped into this gift. We're calling it a gift, or maybe they just had different levels of spectrums that were available. The same way somebody with, what is it, clear sentience or whatever, but they can see other spectrums.
Mhm.
So they
I
will
was
see.
yeah, this is all deep, man. I gotta pause you, man, because look, hey, Jill, you be going deep, man. You gotta slow down, man.
I'm
Come
up to
on.
this. Like, it's nothing
Hold on, man. I gotta facilitate these things. So the
Okay.
first thing you said
You're
that
right.
was
You're right.
dope is because I listen because we're both poets and stuff. When you talk about the bass,
Yes.
so the bass, I think an 808, I think that low sound that the bass makes, you know what I'm saying, in
Mhm.
in music in general, but it also, I thought of like the word BASE, you know what I'm saying? It's the base of our existence here. It's like it is the
Absolutely.
base. But
Absolutely.
also it's like I was talking to my brother Copper Top, aka Kepra, and he studies Yoruba, Ifa. He's also a Kemetic priest. And I remember he was on the show, and we've been friends for almost, over 30 years. And he's always come to me. He's the brother who says he sees spirits. He's the brother who says that he sees things and is aware and connected to things that I'd be like, hey man, if you said you saw it, you said you saw it. You know what I'm saying? It's
Mhm.
like on the thing of, it's basically, for lack of a better term, like seeing ghosts and stuff like that. We call them spirits though. Yeah, I don't call them ghosts. I'm not scared. If I were to see it or hear it, I'll probably write it off as something scientific. My whole point I'm trying to make is we started having this conversation, and it didn't take me long for me to realize that Kepler was saying, hey, so you're pretty much saying that I can't hear what you're hearing. I can't see what you're seeing. I can't feel what you're feeling because I'm not in tune like you. And he was just like, yeah. But I didn't take it as a deficit. I'm fine of where I am right now in my life, how I'm tuned as this being until I'm not. You know what I'm saying? But the point I'm trying to make is when you talk about dog whistling and certain things, there are certain human beings that are tuned differently that can hear things that I can't hear. And I'm
Absolutely.
cool with that. So if you said that you just now heard something, you just now saw something, and you felt something that I didn't feel, I'm not going to say it's not true. I'm just going to be like, we're tuned differently. And
Yes.
that's like when we talk about people like Stevie Wonder, I really do think he is I think he's the best ever, by the way. I'm a little biased. I think he is such a tremendous artist is because he is blind. You know what I'm saying? Even though this conspiracy say, yeah, whatever, y'all. Don't get in the comments talking about Stevie ain't blind, but just, he's in tune differently with the vibrations. Like, because they say when one of your senses is gone, it heightens others. And I
Mhm.
just think that that's what happens with him when he's talking about that, that higher vibration. I feel like he can feel it, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Differently, you know what I'm saying? And I think as a musician, I think that we're in tune more than just a regular consumer of music. We hear different things like, nah, I hear this. And you know, you can kind of like, you can
Absolutely.
influence people with your music and whatnot. You talked
Absolutely.
about you talked about sound. Talk about the power of chant. Like, how is that a progression? How is that like a bridge to other things from sound?
Okay, so firstly, we have to understand that we've been chanting all our lives, right? We've already been chanting all our lives. We talked about the melody that was used to give us the memory for the alphabets. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, same thing as twinkle, twinkle, little star. So they found for some reason that this specific melody allows you to absorb to the point where they could put two different meanings on top of the same melody and give it to you. You remember both. And most people don't even recognize that it's the same one until you say it to them. So, chant is powerful because it's a space of placing repetitive energy. So, it's like, I use this for a really dear friend of mine this morning. When you're attempting to hold your focus, right? Because there's a lot of people right now talking about manifesting. So, if we want to talk about bridging sound with chanting, right? Um, this is why in certain boycotts or certain things, they will have a specific line that they chant, and this becomes attached to the meaning of something. One that we could use easily is "I can't breathe." When I say that, most people will immediately think of George Floyd.
It's programming.
It's programming. So sound can program you. So once we understand that again as a base, right, then we can understand that there are certain syllables that are key syllables that will open you up. There are certain syllables, like for instance, they have something called the six Taoist healing sounds. Dr. Montauk Chia is really bomb to look at it because he gives you the body positions, right? So this is now going into the space of holding your body, making a certain sound. YMCA. You see how we be connecting these things? And people will do it all the time.
Yeah, dance moves with certain dances.
Not just that, but holding yourself in certain positions will cause your body to vibrate a certain way. So we might be thinking it's a dance move, but that's why a challenge could get a bunch of people to do a bunch of things real fast. And if they're not questioning it, what are you really doing? Because why was people trying to kill themselves with crates? To this day, I'm still trying to figure it out. But that's how quickly both the senses put together can push something and influence people, right? So once we understand we've been chanting all this time, there are certain sounds that when you make them repetitively, or mantras, which are key syllables, and like I said, six Taoist healing sounds, like he brings out the sound to heal, I think it's the kidney, is shoo. Most people don't understand there's even a sound that you could make that would vibrate against your own organs in your body, and that would actually create the space of healing. But we also know that we've listened to certain sounds that were very calm and soothing. Even if you've ever taken an MRI, they're gonna give you like something like Enya in the background, something very ethereal, and you just kind of slip away.
Yeah, I use sound a lot when I teach.
Exactly.
So I like to. I'm a big symphony person.
Okay.
Um, so if I want to induce students and myself into like calm and more focus, I'll play, symphony, a certain kind of, um,
Really.
orchestra and symphony. But
Absolutely.
and
Classical helps focus.
and I became a real lover of the symphony as I got older, and it helped me be a better musician. Because number one, I drew the reference to it took me just back to Aboriginal and indigenous people of how we played instruments and stuff like that. All that stuff that Europe does, and they propagate, they borrowed and learned from us. But what I also loved about the symphony, and it taught me about human beings and how the world works, is that how that one sound comes out. But if you sat back, you could just hear the cello. If you sat back, you could just hear the violin, and you can hear nothing else. And that's how I feel like when I wake up in the morning, I hear the there go the crows, and then there are hummingbirds, and then there's the water, and there's the wind. This is a freaking band. This is an orchestra, and this is the reason why how you wake up in the morning, where you live at. Some people wake up to a more peaceful and productive day just based on the first sounds they hear in the morning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if you're waking up constantly to the sounds of sirens, and say you've had some type of traumatic event where there was a siren going on in the background, every time you heard a siren, that your mind is going to start downloading the same chemical for the trauma that you went through in the first place.
But
So,
listen, listen what you just now said, Jill.
yeah,
You said a siren. In ancient mythology, a siren was like a nymph, or was a mermaid or a Risha that put people in a spell.
absolutely.
Like all this stuff, you know what I'm saying? It all reverts back to indigenous
Absolutely.
creation stories. You know what I'm saying? That's why
Absolutely.
the word siren is siren. That's why spell is spell. You spell something,
Yep, that's the first thing you learn how to do when you go to school. It's
Yeah, it's to put someone
so
underneath the spell.
exactly, exactly. So based on the meanings that we as humans have given to these sounds, because again, if sounds are older than humans, these meanings are just a psychological process that we have created, right?
Yeah, and
So,
even sound though. I live by what is called a body of water. You
mhm.
know what they call a body of water that I live by? They call it the Puget Sound.
Mm, wow.
And you
Okay.
talked, and you
That
talked and you talked about water and how
yeah,
that's connected to sound.
yes.
It's like it's
So,
so deep, man. It's
listen,
like
what's even deeper than that? I was able to so much gratitude. Like recently, visit the Poconos, and that was a place like for years I've been saying I wanted to visit. And it's amazing to me because early 6:30 in the morning, when the wind is rustling through the trees, it sounds like the seashore. It sounds like waves coming in on the seashore. And then the birds and the music and everything coming together, exactly like you said, it is a cosmic opera. And that's why you'll see sometimes, like for instance, before I started making music, I used to look at people like Timbaland and I used to be amazed. And I remember asking myself all the time, I wonder what it's like just to walk around and have music in your head all the time, like, and not somebody else's thing. What you're creating, to me, that was amazing. One of the craziest songs, Aaliyah. I'm trying to remember the exact song, but it's a much harder beat. And when she comes in singing kind of softly on it, it was the combination of so many elements to me when I heard it. That was like,
yeah,
whoa,
Timberland was good at that, man. Shout out to my Pisces.
man. Oh my God. Timbaland Magoo and Missy Elliott, like
Oh,
era was
don't you say the M word though.
that was
Ah!
crazy. That was like that was
Hey,
the
hey,
era.
hey, can we talk about I want to ask you this because you brought up Magoo, and this is a good transition because I feel like there are certain sounds and certain frequencies that can be used to torture people. And
Yes,
Magoo's
bro.
and, you set it up. And Magoo's voice, even though it sounds like Q-Tip, I swear, it's just that octave off that it goes from terrific to torture. He has, I mean, and his rhythm is so bad.
You
He's
know
got
what?
one of the worst rappers ever.
Listen, when I never listened to an entire Magoo album,
And
but when he was
bless your soul,
included
because you're
in
very
those songs,
intelligent.
and they would bring out the different elements and the different like artists, when it hit together, the song itself was amazing.
I guess so.
So,
Yeah,
so
I see
yeah,
that.
it's like the elements. It was, I guess, to hear someone bringing in a different element because
That's
he
I
sounded so
see that.
different. He
That's so
sounded so completely different. So it just it what it did, it was make you really focus on his parts, right?
yeah,
So that it definitely sounds can be used to do anything. They again, when they wanted us to remember something very quickly, it was always put to music. Jimi Hendrix said, "You want to hypnotize a people, get them at their lowest point, and then control their music."
yeah. We're gonna get into that too.
Yeah.
Um, we were talking about before we went live. We were talking. I was bringing up how Guantanamo Bay has a list of artists that they play to their prisoners to torture them, and Eminem's on there for sure. Yeah, Eminem's on there. I think
Yeah.
the song is My Name Is because his voice, that octave, you know what I'm saying? It's like when I first heard that song, I thought it was really dope, but I understand if you kept playing his voice over and over and over again, the tuning fork would make that will be activated from that would just make you go bananas. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and I think Magoo should be on that list too. Of the
What I like though about his style was the manipulating of his voice to tell stories and bring out what would sound like different characters. So again, right? It's all the elements. Like I also loved Nas's storytelling. I think it was Nas that did a rap and it was backwards.
oh,
Bro,
that is an amazing song. It's called Reverse. Yeah.
bro, I was like, What did I just witness? So again, these elements, right? To use sound to bring us pictures. We realize we are doing more than just seeing a picture. We are also hearing pictures. They say pictures say 1,000 words.
Mm-hmm.
It's always bringing it back down to sound. So they say
Right.
the speed of sound is faster than the speed of light.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like you said, Stevie Wonder, they say could not see, but he could hear. And some people can see sounds.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
But that's the whole science. You know, when you have a computer program, you feel me, whether it's Cubase or it's Logic or it's Pro Tools, right? When you record it, you can actually see the sound waves. And
Exactly.
and if you're an engineer, you know what I'm saying, you know, I'm not as good as the other ones, you know what I'm saying? But when I work with, you know, engineers, they'll look at the sound waves and be like, see, we got to take this and we got to shave
Mhm.
this down.
Okay.
And based on looking at it, they can say, basically, they're saying, Logic, you don't see it right now, but this pitch right here is not pleasant to the ear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a compressor. I'm going to use a compressor, bring back down this sound, bring this up, your highs, your mids, your lows, and then make it like this. It's going to make a difference in your music. And I will say this, you can tell the difference between, that's the reason why you can tell the difference between an album that is mixed a certain way
Mm.
and an album that's not. And that's why it's so beautiful when certain albums are mixed a certain, like Dre has that sound,
Yeah.
or like Killer Mike's new album. He said he spent $500,000 on that album, and I can tell you right now, I hear it. I hear $500,000 in that
Mm.
mixing. I can
Okay.
hear it. I can hear it.
Yes.
But then there's
When I
but
started to work with the sound engineer that I'm working with, like, oh my God. I was like, oh, wow. It really, absolutely. And then what you find out, right, is that there's an actual math, a pattern that is also going into their patterns of sound and seeing, right? Because if you're saying that they can look at it, right, by the visual and say, oh no, this isn't pleasing because they understand the pattern. They even say, if you want a hit song, right? It's the hooks because it's that repetitive pattern being done different times through the song that's going to hook them.
yeah,
So
that's why it's called a hook.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we can understand how powerful sound is. They have this thing, it's like a famous thing, that a quote that people, a lot of people, especially older people back in the day, used to see it with them in their house hanging on the wall. And it says, if you raise a child with criticism and it told you what would happen, versus raising a child with encouragement. So these are also sounds. These also create shapes within us. These create ideas within us. These create boundaries within us. And a lot of people will work according to those boundaries until they change the sounds that they are saying to themselves and the sounds that they're hearing. When most people want to, go up in something, they start to take courses in something. They begin to listen to and read. So they're listening through their eyes, right? Information so that they can change the outcome of their life. When I went to nursing school, it was a lot of lecture. It was a lot of lecture. It was a lot of listening. I would
Right.
have to go and watch a video on what this particular body part looks like. So I'm listening with my eyes and my ears to understand and go into an organ that I'm not physically seeing, like
Yeah.
the actual organ itself.
Yeah.
So we
And that's
understand how deep
and,
that
and
is.
and that's the real reason why a lot of people don't understand. That's the reason why during the Islamic um colonization and also the European, they took away certain instruments. That's why in Islam, you a lot of Orthodox Muslims, you know what I'm saying, they adhere to it. They say they can't do anything that's going to put other people underneath their spell. They don't do flutes because they saw indigenous people using flutes to charm snakes. That's a real thing. We were using drums. Of course, we know the European took drums away from us because we use them to communicate. But here's another thing. They took the kora away from us. The kora is an instrument that the griots or the jollies used to play. and then we changed it to the banjo or the guitar. But if you ever listen to someone, I actually have, some partners, one in particular, shout out to Ibrahim, who works with the Griot Party. He plays the kora. Now, when you listen to this man play the kora, you will understand why they took that away from us.
Absolutely.
The sound that comes from this kora when he plays it, it literally will put you in a trance. You'll just sit there and you'll be like, oh, that was boring. No, you were under a trance. He was just sitting there and he'll just talk to you. And you're just like,
yep. It's
exactly what we used to do. This is what we used to do to the colonizer. We used to put these cats, they would be playing the kora and they would be under a trance and we'd be plotting behind them how to start the next maroon colony.
And still doing it, even with the guitar. I have a friend now that plays flute. By the way, the flute is one of the sounds they claim that you hear when you've really tapped in through the through the different chakras, right? Is the flute. That's why some birds sound like that. They sound like a flute played really fast. And when you look at the science, when they have slowed these bird chirps down, they sound like human voices.
That's fly. That's dope.
It's like amazing. Also, if you look at what it looks like when you get static or white noise, that also looks like water waves.
I'm glad you brought up white noise because they, a lot of, what a lot of what they call modern technology and the stuff that they reproduce is really just the technology of Earth. You know what I'm saying?
I say to people who are so afraid of technology, yes, you will see things, crazy things, but no logic could never ever outdo biologic because they're making everything based on us in the first place. Cities are basically in the replicas of computer chips. Like if you look at it and you can understand the energy harvesting that's going on. China, their bullet nose train is made after a specific bird. You know what I'm saying? Like even the sonar radar, most people think it came from the dolphin, but it really came from the bat. It was really because bats can't see. It's the way the frequency comes back up and hits their nose. And by the way, we have guanine in our DNA, which comes from the droppings of bats. So this is why certain people can tap into the magnetic field of the earth too. And they can tell you when it's going to rain and certain shit like that. They might get a kick up in, their knee or some positive ion feeling in their body. And they can tell you. That's how connected we are in tune, right? So like you said, tuning ourselves, there's actually tuning forks for the body. So once you understand and look at the science of tuning forks for the body, you'll understand that we each are making a sound. When we are at peace with ourselves, that sound is vibrating really loud. And that's why certain people who give off a certain vibration, they're very magnetic. People are all in your face because it's a sound. It's you become the kora, you become the flute. So, and some people, their spectrums won't hear or whatever tuning issues they got going on, they might hear what they want to hear, but you're still giving off the note that you're giving.
Yeah. I like to tell people often, frequently, that if you ever want to find the foundation of anything of technology, just look at nature and look at your own personal biology. And I just be like, the whole concept of a firearm, a gun, it's after punching someone. That's why they call it a firearm. You know what I'm saying? It's fire at the end of your arm, but that is just a replication of you punching someone. A plane is nothing but a bird. It's a metal bird. You know what I'm saying? So all these things that we do, a microchip, like you said, like you download thoughts to, you know what I'm saying, to your tongue from your brain, just like you download stuff from your computer that comes out as text on the computer screen. It's all based on Earth technology. Real quick, I wanted to do something real quick. I wanted to, when we talk about the songs that they use to torture people, is real quick, Christina Aguilera, Dirty, Barney and Friends, I Love You song. That's used to Drowning Pool, Bodies, Eminem's Kim, Marilyn Manson's The Beautiful People, the Meow Mix theme, 9 Inch Nails, Somewhat Damaged, Queen, We Are the Champions. Wow. And Britney,
Really?
yeah,
Well,
Britney
I would
Spears.
because maybe being locked in Guantanamo Bay here and We Are the Champions. I could understand that would mess with me too. Like these mothers. But
Then
I
Britney
mean, yeah,
Spears, baby, one more time. You said what?
it's probably the octaves. What's so interesting about the last one you said, Britney Spears, when they're not auto tuning her voice, quite honestly, that she has a beautiful voice. She really does. They will not.
It's
They
the
never
same
really
thing.
allow. Oh, baby, baby, what?
Yeah, the same with T-Pain. He can really sing. He doesn't really
Oh
need
man,
out.
exactly,
He's had to
exactly.
work on it though. He at first he wasn't the most polished singer, but I've seen him live. He doesn't need auto tune. But
Yeah,
I think, and you know, it's funny, the whole science of auto tune too. You know what I'm saying? You know, you have to pay attention to that auto tuning something. There's a reason why that kind of music is so popular. Now we can make this transition and this pivot to hip hop music, what I really wanted to get into, but it's the reason why that sound is so pleasing to the ear. And people talk so much stuff about auto tune, but I also think they're just really fighting just their natural inclination. Like there's something about it, just like mumble rap. I be trying to tell people like, why are you so against mumble rap? It's
because I
it's
need to know what they're saying.
it's just the
I need
same
to know
thing.
what they're saying. What is
It's
they saying?
you trying to be funny now, but
No, I'm serious.
it's just
What
like
is
Scott.
they saying?
That's
There was a song Young Thug had. Um, lived a lot just to get it. And I remember I was in a club, get Tim now, get this. What was he saying? And there was a girl in the corner, and she was saying it so hard. And I mean, I literally made my way through the whole club. I was like, "Excuse me." She was like, "Well," I was like, "What is he saying?" She was like, "Girl, I don't know." But you're that into it. How do you not?
but some people do know what they're saying though too.
I, I would guess, but it's
it's
a
like
lot of
pig,
us don't. A
it's
lot of
like
us
pig
don't.
Latin. It's like pig Latin.
I mean, nah, we could there was a codified thing for Pig Latin. We know
I know, I know, and I bet you.
we can
And
translate this. I don't know what these
I
people
think
saying.
there's a codified thing for scatting too. We didn't know what they were saying, but we knew what they were saying.
That's because sounds are older than humans. So
Exactly.
mumble rap is
Exactly.
scatting is one thing, and that's just a because again, right, even through the there are certain sounds that vibrate different parts of the body.
Exactly.
Right? So scatting, yes, you could feel that. What we're not feeling the mumble rap, we're feeling the beat and the mumble rap the same way they could put Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and ABCDEFG on top of the same melody and give us different meanings. But that's why you have to be careful because melodies will trance you.
Yeah, but
Melodies will put you
I
out.
think
And
I
then
think.
that's a part of MK Ultra. You know that? That's
Oh
how
yeah. Well, that's a whole different episode though.
I'm
MKF.
just saying that's how deep it
Yeah,
can go. And that's why, especially when I'm listening to music, I'm very aware of what it is I'm encoding my mind with because it is very easy. You can wish to almost darn near take on the character, the archetype. How many times have we seen young children walking down the side of the street and they got on some headphones and they rapping this song hard like it's their song? They have super identified and meshed with the character and the energy and information that's being put out through that song. That's why you even have people who are listen to hip hop who are in different cultures, races, and people will complain about it and saying how they just want to take on because they feel like it's a lifestyle. It's codified.
yeah.
So it goes so deep on what it can put the mind in and the space that it can have you in.
But we also have to understand that the way we're communicating right now is probably one of the lowest, if not the lowest, forms of communication when it comes to being, you know, humans and stuff. Because like, how can we fit everything into, you know what I'm saying, 26 characters? You know what I'm saying, and putting them together and making sound. So I remember back in the day. I don't know if you remember the brother. He's one of my favorite artists. Saul Williams. He's a poet. He's a spoken word artist, and he had a song called. I don't even know if the song. I think the song is actually called but he would be like doing spoken word, but he'd be like, and he'd be saying something, and then when he said it would get you to zoom.
Yep.
And then he'd say something else, and it gets you over here, and he'd say and he'd go boom. My whole point is that when you mentioned in the beginning of this podcast that sound, you said it has like historical meanings and everything, and it goes way back. But I was just like listening to music and just finding these little breadcrumbs and these Easter eggs throughout music and being like, oh man, that's deep. You know how they're using that.
That's why, if you notice, you said it would bring you right there. It will focus you to it, because the science of the word is that every sound exists in that. Now, what's interesting, when I started looking at the information for right? And I love my curiosity for this part, but I was just like, they'll tell you that they do not know the meaning, again, because sounds are older than humans, right? Like even the sound when I say the word ankh, what it does to my body if I chant that ankh, like it really actually causes a brainwave change in me, right? But when I was looking at the when you look it up, the dictionary, it'll tell you they don't know the definition of it. It's the syllable, the mystical syllable that seeded the whole universe. But when I began to look at certain chants that are already codified for meaning for us, Ganesha chant, for instance, and if you look it up and just put in Google Ganesha and the shape of the brain, you're gonna see something that actually mimics like an elephant's trunk and ears, right? Just in the anatomy, the way it's made up. So people who think that this is about worshiping another deity is really not, okay? But that the chant for Ganesha, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha Sharanam Ganesha, is to remove obstacles. What this really does is open up your brainwaves so that you can become more creative and you can really feel more power and energy in yourself to get through your obstacles better, however somebody wants to see it. But when I looked it up, when you look up the definition of that chant, it'll say something like greetings and salutations too. And I'm like, why are they giving me a definition for Om here and not there? But then what I found was there was an Igbo goddess by the name of Oma, later known to the Hindu as Uma, later known to the Dogon as Ama, and later to us as Amen. People are still chanting Om, whether they understand or not.
Logic, Amen. So be it. So be it. I like that.
What's crazy is you might not have had those puzzle pieces before, but for some reason you understood the Amen deeper than what someone told you the meaning of it is, right? Because it may be the sound and syllable, right? Or what they have connected it to you for. Either way, it's still a sound that you're choosing to connect to yourself, which is a very old and ancient sound. So these certain syllables make sounds. You might not understand that, but if I were to show somebody a Starbucks logo, right? They're going to start to equate and associate this because the brain works on association with a lot of different things. For some people, if I make that, to them, it's going to be the sound of when you're sucking on a straw and the last bit of something goes through. This is how deep.
That Starbucks symbol is very seductive. Yeah,
it is, because it's olokun. It's an old symbol. It means a lot. This is why, if again, we were talking about in the last podcast, in the Bible is Greek and Hebrew. So when John 1:1, in the beginning there was the Word, that word will be in the beginning there was the Logos. And the Logos was God, and the Logos was with God. So
it's also saying also in the beginning was the sound too.
That is the sound. Logo is sound. So when they look at Walmart, it's a sunburst. Target is the same thing. It's a sun. It's a circumpunct. So it's the dot in the middle and the circle. And the teaching ancient wise to that was you're the dot in the middle. So if you're in the middle, the distance to anywhere on that circle is the same. Everything is available to us as long as we feel it is. right? So all of these places that they have a logo. So the MasterCard logo, we've seen this so many times in school when they were spelling us. So this used to be your
The infinite symbol.
compare and contrast bubbles, and they will put the
Yeah.
similarities in that small ass little thing in the middle. And I used to be so mad, like, what
Venn,
can I fit in there? It was
Venn
not
diagram. It's
fitting it
called
in
Venn diagram. Venn diagram.
the Vesica Pisces. It's
Mhm.
when a split is it's a cell is splitting. We've seen this a million times. When they took the middle part of it by itself and turned it sideways, they gave it to us as the fish, as Pisces as Jesus. See
Mhm.
how much they can do with a sound and a logo and a symbol?
Mhm.
Because now that fish is associated with. That's why people have it on their bumper cars. And most people, when you see it immediately, you understand to connect that person with Jesus and that's a Christian. That's how deep sounds and symbols go. So we can use these definitely for our outcomes because again, every major company has a logo. They want you to associate this logo. Gucci is the same thing as MasterCard. It's just the sides of the Vesica Pisces opened up for a G, but it's that same intersecting pattern. So how deep was the Vesica Pisces? Because that doesn't belong to a religion. That is a symbol that they used, right, to associate in people's minds something else. So how deep does that go? So these are the same symbols. So and people will now associate Gucci with expensive or wealth or that type of thing. You see what I'm saying? It's that easy to associate. So
Everything you saying, like even what I hear you saying and what you're saying to the public is even a symbol makes a sound.
absolutely.
You hear something when even from the side of it. I wanted to talk if you could talk real quick before we make this transition and talking about music and stuff. Can you talk about sound bowls? I see it a lot. I see them a lot. When we talked about it before we went on air, like I want to get one, but they're kind of expensive. Some of them are really expensive. The kind I want is expensive. They're these metal bowls, and you hit them, and you do this, and these sounds radiate out of that. Talk a little
Absolutely.
bit. Talk a little bit about your experience with those and the
Oh
importance of
man.
those and how they can impact your health and your conditions and all that.
Absolutely. Again, so there was something that I remember reading, and it talked about the shamans in the Amazon, right? Because I've always found this absolutely amazing that they can walk out there and understand this plant that to me looks like the such a is so in closeness to variety to so many plants around it. This one is for the kidneys. This one is for the heart. This one is for this. What they say is that the organ actually vibrates out a specific resonance. And some of those people who were able to see in the larger spectrums, right? They could see the plant giving off the same resonance or color or energy or sound as the organ. And that's how they knew what to use with what. The singing bowl is the same thing. When you use a singing bowl, you're going to eventually feel your brain waves shifting. You begin to get calmer. It can put you under a trance. This is going to begin to tune the energies in your body so that you are calm. If I were to put you like in, you know what I'm saying, like a daycare, like just screaming, screaming children all day, we could understand that's a resonance, right? And so your energy, everything is gonna be on alert, theta waves, right? Trying to get everything together. What you're able to think about, bring into fruition, to manifest, all of that is gonna be different at that time. Can't really focus on what you got right now. You got to figure out why this baby's screaming.
Mhm. Hey Jill, do you have one of those singing bowls or
I
sound
actually do.
bowls?
I actually do have a singing bowl, but even doper than a singing bowl, there's this place down here in maybe 20 minutes north of Miami, and it's called the Yellow and Green Market. And there was a gentleman who gave me a sound meditation. So he had these two large gongs in the booth just set up, and man, the way going around, so then you begin to understand the different metals and the sounds that they create. So a lot of people wear copper right now because they understand what it does to your energy, your vibration, your ultimate sound. So he starts, like, I don't know, manipulating this thing and gonging it, and I'm literally seeing a vision in my mind's eye, and I'm not the only one. People go there all the time specifically for this. And this vision was to connect you to another spirit guide that you have. And what I saw was like looking at the top of like the Amazon trees. And then I saw King Kong beating on his chest. After that, there was very un-monkey mind like energy that was coming from me. Because I'm serious. You can go ape shit or you can be in your monkey mind. It's one of the two. You know what I'm saying? The monkey mind is just meant to keep you in loops and da 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 da. But when you decide on something and you focus on it, that's what I call that. Something completely different. That vibration is keep coming.
There's a difference between a
When
monkey
you get in front of it, it's coming.
different between a monkey and an ape, and
It's completely different.
yeah, the monkey is very very wise being in African.
Absolutely. But there, you know what I'm saying? So when you look at the myth of Hanuman and things like that, and it just can get so intricate and so deep. But my point was this. So there's even a guy on Gaia, right? That talks about, people talk about how the pineal is like a pine cone. And I would explain to people, when you open up your third eye, it's going to open up like a pine cone and spin. This spin is going to create visions in people. And these things are real. They are tactile in sensation. And this, again, this is might sound mystified, but when you look it up, you're going to realize it's codified science. So you can listen to the sounds and bring you into the knowing and the consciousness of where you want to be at, or you can listen to whatever they got on the radio, but understand that that's meant to keep you in a very specific consciousness.
Okay, so let's just do that. Let's do that transition right now. Let's do that stuff on the radio. So, are you saying that hip hop, like we take like stuff we hear on the radio, like hip hop and stuff like that? Are you saying that the music we listen to can make us do certain things?
Everything that we listen to. You know what I'm saying? But again, if music is what was used repetitively to make us learn certain things, then absolutely. The behaviors that seem cool to us, that are going to be pushed, that are getting people the attention, whether they understand what the consequences of that is going to be or not, is displayed through the music. And if it wasn't such a powerful tool, there wouldn't be such a push to control the messages that are coming through in hip hop. What's interesting, very recently, there was the death of Sinead O'Connor, and there was a page that was honoring her. And when she had put, oh my gosh, was it NWA's logo on the side of her head? And she went to the Grammys one time and she talked about how the underground scene of hip hop was not being appreciated for its positive messages at the time. So as we can see, hip hop extends beyond one culture. Everybody love hip hop. So it's not just us even that we have to understand that's being affected. It's also giving people other ideas of what we are in totality. That's why you'll see a lot of them who have not really encountered will look at these images and be like, oh no, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Then they meet a person like me and you and they don't know what to do with that.
I would love to, yeah, because I think that we have to do, it's not, I think we have to do a part 2, because we went to the science and the spirituality of sound and chant. And I want to use the next 7 minutes to kind of intro of like this whole thing of how that, you know what I'm saying, it corresponds with what's going on now with current hip hop. And I think that how I see it is, to add on to what you're saying is, first of all, I think a lot of things come into play. You know what I'm saying? They're like when we say an orchestra, that's why we set the stage so ideal to have this conversation. There's a cello playing here, there's a violin playing here. Taken away individually, they can all have an impact on it. But it's the orchestra of everything that together that creates our condition as a people. Absolutely. Just the history of our people, the economic poverty, the value system poverty, and then there's the music we listen to. So I say that to say this. I say, like, no matter what kind of music we've been listening to, We've been in the same conditions. And I think that, and you mentioned something that was powerful before we went live. You said this is just not just a blip, you know what I'm saying, in our existence in the world. And if you study history, if you study the the science and the history of the world and of Earth, you got to understand that we've been here, since
and masters and the lords of all these different
right.
locations.
But I
I
just
mean,
think
to Scotland, they, you know what I'm saying? You look at old depictions, you're gonna see what looked like us. And again, like the deeper you go spiritually, like the perspectives can change. So yes, like slavery, these conditions are a blip. We have to also understand that certain ideas have been presented to us too. Um, so yeah, it's a blip in the condition. But what the music did do was provide strength to get through these
oh
conditions.
yeah, for absolutely, absolutely. And I just here's my thing. My concern is, because we got 5 minutes. My concern is that we are going down a slippery slope, open up Pandora's box when we start blaming hip hop music for all our woes and all this, that, and the third. And they've done that so many times. They demonize our music. They did it to jazz music, you know what I'm saying? And hip hop is just the next on the chopping block. But what I was going to say is, it's like things are in reverse, and we have to understand when we talk about the word devil. If you look at the word devil, it's live backwards. So they put things in backwards. So if something started off where, the conditions were created by the sound, then the sound creates the conditions. But if you flip it, then it's like the conditions create the actual sounds that we're making.
Mhm.
My point is if we look at the history of Black people, our music is perfectly connected and synchronated to what we're going through. So when you're hearing people rap about drugs, I'm on lean and all that, you can take the surface level of that and say, oh man, they're just promoting, Sprite and cough syrup. Or are they really promoting, or are they really saying, I'm suffering from post-traumatic stress disorders or slave disorder, and I use these drugs to try to mitigate my pain? That's what I hear, because I've tuned my ear to say, that's what I hear. When I hear a song when I hear like an NWA album, people be like, oh man, that album was hard. When I listen to that album now at 48 years old with a trained ear, I hear, violence against women. I hear pedophilia. I hear so many different things like, oh, that's the reason why NWA was put in the forefront.
Absolutely.
I hear different things now that I've tuned my ear and trained my ear. Just like when I told you about Kepra or Kapatop hears different things. I hear different things now as I tune my ears. So my whole point is I say, is the conditions are actually creating the sounds that are coming out of our mouth, as opposed to what it used to be. I think at some time, I do think that sound created our conditions. I don't think that's where we're at right now.
Okay, so if we break down what you're saying, sound is creating our conditions. Then if we would want to see a different condition, we would need to listen to different.
No. I said it's complete opposite. I think the conditions are creating the sounds.
Okay, so if the conditions are creating the sounds, but we understand how powerful sound is, we would need to make a different sound so that we can see a different condition. Because yes, we can hear the pain through it, but still, if we, again, so using drugs to mitigate our pain, that still isn't healthy. That still is causing a bunch of issues. That still is causing a breakdown in society around us. If you look at the etymological word of pharmacy, which is pharmakia in Greek, it means witchcraft. So either which way, they still circling you back around to the same condition.
Yeah.
So yes, as being 48 and with a trained ear and a love of hip hop and the elements of having love for your people and compassion, you can hear that. But a little 9-10-year-old, they not hearing that. Like Kendrick Lamar has a song and it's called Cartoons and Cereal. And he's like, I was watching you and I wanted to be just like you. And he's telling him, don't be like me. Just finish watching cartoon. But what they see, what they listen to, everything they become. This is why when you've got children right now who are mastering certain elements very young, but those things are purposely being put in front of their face so they can. So it's both ways, you know what I'm saying? So yes, if the conditions are creating the sounds, then why not let's looking at what those have done to us and what we are continuously seeing it done, rather than jumping in the vehicle and becoming a part. Now it's self-sustaining.
I understand what you're saying. I see what you're saying, and I want to get to our plan of action because this is a great time for us to take a break and then pivot and into a part two at some other time. I don't think it's that simple. I think we conflate and I think we simplify things that if we can, just easily train a kid by putting certain kind of music in their ears and then they'll start acting that way. I don't think it's that simple.
Well, I mean, maybe to come back for a part two on how deep the science of sound is. I mean, of course, it's going to take more than just the sounds. I understand, right? But we're talking about starting from places, and we're discussing sounds.
It's also the frequency of what you say too, because
Exactly.
you can say I love you. You can say I love you in a frequency that sounds harming.
Exactly.
Like for instance, like I give you the perfect example. We're ideal
for human things, meanings of human things, sounds.
When our parents used to whoop us or something like that, there was a sound not only that the belt made, right, but it was a sound that came out of their mouth. And one sound I remember in particular, there's a collection of sounds, but it was, "This hurts me more than it hurts you," or "I'm doing this because I love you." And to put the sound of "I love you" with the sound of a belt and the feeling of it being hurt, nah, that
wasn't in tune.
It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't. So it. My whole point I'm trying to make is, as as a child, that didn't compute as love. That wasn't love. It wasn't.
Exactly.
That's
why these sounds aren't computing as love to these children when they listen to it.
Sing the song of love all you want, but if it doesn't feel like love because it really isn't love, then it's not. So that's my whole point I'm trying to make is it's just like, you can say certain things all you want, but it means how you say it too and what frequency you say it to actually have an outcome.
But that's why Jimi Hendrix said you get a people at its lowest point, you can hypnotize them with the music.
Shout out to Seattle.
Absolutely. So, I mean, absolutely what we're listening to on a regular is going to direct our consciousness. I don't think it's that simple. But again, if to say it's not that simple is also trying to take the power away from hip hop. If it wasn't that powerful, there would not be such a control element on it. Certain other genres and people who speak real stuff on top of the hip hop will be pushed much further than the people you see in now. It is used as a tool because it is so powerful. So we're not demonizing hip hop. We're saying they're using hip hop as a tool because they understand it can trance and use brainwaves to bring in demonic forces. You don't demonize the tool. You demonize the people who are in control of the tool and using it. And this is why people are finding all types of ways outside of that now. Like you've got people who are not signing to labels anymore just so that they can keep the control of their voice because it goes so deep. It goes so deep. I mean, it's not just the sounds. They're now saying that they own those sounds.
That's a powerful word, own.
Exactly. So why in 360 deals they would say whatever you make in the galaxy? What do they know that these people don't when they signing on these contracts? Because now you can pass away and they just gonna pull up a hologram and still keep making money off you with the sounds you made.
And the AI now, that AI technology,
the sounds you make and get known for are that they can keep repeating them. If I say blue moon, some people is gonna Frank Sinatra, other people is gonna be Ella Fitzgerald. But that's what I'm saying. So when I'm doing nothing but keeping the space of a beat and consciousness that's made to, because there are war dances. Like you said, like the Zulus were not beat until they took the drum away. and introduce the Bible. So how powerful is this sound really? Let's give it what it's due. And then once people understand how powerful it is and stop, like you said, it's not about demonizing the hip hop. This is talent. This is talent that's so deep that people don't even know. Like Sanskrit, a lot of people will say is one of the oldest languages. You know how you say no in Sanskrit? Nah. What did we just start doing? Nah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tapped into genius. It's not that it's being demonized, it's that it's so powerful of a tool, it's being used in that manner.
Yeah.
But hip-hop itself is golden forever.
Yeah.
Forever, because it's the sounds of our expression.
Right.
But if you don't have minds that are being, like you said, like being, you know what I'm saying, molded to understand this is what this person is talking about. And that's also a choice, though. You also have this avenue, this avenue, this avenue, this avenue. Because the only things that are glorified in certain of those images that are purposely force fed to our children are ball player and rapper. But a lot of them got minds like Warren Buffett. So what do? We need to stop making their existence small. These children are fire. Okay, they're fire, and they're gonna take hip hop back. I promise you, they're gonna take it back.
So I want to make a transition because you know how we do it on Seed Talk, stuff to make your seeds walk. We like to end each show or resolve each show, I should say, with the plan of action. I'll go first. Based on what we talked about today, I would say the plan of action and your homework would be to, as you go out into the world after this show, I want you to concentrate on the sounds and how they're connected to what you want to do for the day. So, for instance, if you want
sigh a lot,
what?
If you sigh a lot,
I said, oh yeah, that too. But I was thinking more of like, since we listen to so much music, if you want to calm yourself, be intentional in listening to some music that or some vibrations that calm yourself, even if that music is silence, even if that music is the repetition of mantras or affirmations. Those are all sounds that put you in in a form of intentionality to do what you really want to do. Now you're going to have to do other things.
Your students the symphony so that they can.
Because I would argue, like, prayer is just like a mantra. Prayer is just like an affirmation. But if you just leave it at just saying something and not doing what you're saying, there's no intentionality behind it. So I would say use sound to really, really create intentionality in your life, whatever that sound may be. Or you might not make a certain sound because it might not be what you really want to do. Like you said, stop sighing, or maybe stop saying, one of the things that I was trying to do, in my life is when I'm trying to convey a message to make my message hit more, is to stop saying, or, like, I would actually be intentional in that. It's like, cut those sounds out. Those are unnecessary vibrations. Instead of saying, or like, just be like, just pause. Just leave that pregnant pause in that space and see how that works to communicating your message. Because I listen to people when they talk, when they say, it's, to me, it's so annoying.
Has a psychological effect.
Yeah, it's annoying.
It doesn't purvey confidence, right? It's like they're still
right
their words.
Right.
So yes, that was something that was taught to me called euphemisms, how to pause and stop. And that's why I even learned to take a moment before I respond and get the idea together. Whereas everybody else but once you feel more for yourself and you understand you're not speaking to validate yourself, you take that moment.
Yeah.
And then your words are there and it flows and people listen better. But I like what you said about making the sounds match. And that, if we're coming from Christianity, would be to become the living word. It would mean your word is your bond. It would mean that once you say something out your mouth, people understand that's what it really is. It's coming to fruition. That would be speaking it into existence. That's how deep these sounds are. Like, I had to really take time with my music, right? And once I'd written like 10 songs, was that like a fluke? No, I still have more to say. I just needed to sit down with the sounds, and this is why I kind of did. I took a rest from listening to a lot of the music that's available right now, just so I could hear my own voice. What did I want to say? And that's why my music is extremely authentic to me, though. It's authentic. I'm talking about the same stuff I'm talking to you about here right now.
Mm-hmm. So, what will be your plan of action, Jill the Word Witch?
Mine is definitely that. It's just bringing more and more into focus, speaking what I want into existence and not speaking against myself. So I've been paying attention to that a lot more and keeping those words. So also writing the words down, right? Writing down my plan of action this past 2 weeks, the night before, has been extremely powerful for me for the next day. If we want to write a book, if we don't know how it ends, how do we know how to write its pages? That's why some people are just floating. And you know what they do? They get up in the morning and they put another artist in their ear.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
Hey, it's been awesome. I'm looking
always.
forward to part two of this conversation where we're gonna really dive in since we set the we have set, you know what I'm saying, the framework and the premise, you know what I'm saying, of the power of sound and chant. It's a perfect, you know what I'm saying, platform to launch into our next conversation of just not just hip hop, but all genres of music and how
Absolutely.
it really influences you. It's been great. Hey, remember, like and share, comment. Make sure y'all getting into the comments, and you guys are, you know, interacting and engaging with us. If you want to be on C Talk, let me know. Inbox me if you got any topics you want us to go over. If you got a business that you want to promote, I can weave it into a topic. You know what I'm saying? And we all about promoting Black business, independent businesses, and whatnot. So if you got a business, let me know. We can weave it into a topic, and that's what we need to do is cooperative economics, you know, and whatnot. So it's been great. We out.
Thanks
See
again
you
for having me.
all.